What's up, everybody? Lies of P has been out for over a week now, and I think we can all agree that it is a solid Souls-like. In my opinion, it's definitely the best in the genre. Just to clarify, I'm talking about Souls-likes that are made by other developers than From Software. But just like most Souls games, you will find a bunch of brain-dead reviews on Metacritic, and they always make me laugh. So without further ado, let's get started.
Game is too difficult to play. 3 out of 10.
That is definitely a skill issue. This is a Souls-like. It's not supposed to be easy. If you want an easy game, go play Kirby.
A solely visual Souls. The Chinese Bloodborne that doesn't give even half the satisfaction of advancing. It's unfair, frustrating, where you die repeatedly like all Souls, which is not the problem, but it does not give the feeling of having improved or learned because there is no pattern to follow. A useless and unnecessary parry that literally costs you your life to stun the enemy, since the enemies have unlimited and frenetic energy. It cannot be compared to the parry of the masterpiece Sekiro, where the enemies are equally powerful and fast, but their parry is so well thought out that it is satisfying to learn to control it. It has a useless and suicidal Spectre, Invocation, which lacks defensive mechanics and its objective is to distract until death. It is preferable and it is better to do it without its help. It is a game that I would not recommend, poorly balanced. I would directly go on to play the real Bloodborne for the 8th time. 0 out of 10.
Now that review was particularly ridiculous because saying that the parrying system is useless is ridiculous. You will need to parry if you are to beat this game. And although it does take a little bit more time to master if you compare it to Sekiro, it is extremely satisfying when a boss comes at you with a red glowing attack and you parry it and you take no damage, all while inflicting posture damage to the boss. But then again, that's something that this reviewer wouldn't have known because he didn't actually try it.
Copy-paste Dark Souls. They didn't change user interface even. Also read input. It would be good game if they didn't make fake Dark Souls. 0 out of 10.
I don't know how this guy got fake Dark Souls out of it. Basically, it's a Souls-like inspired by Bloodborne, but it does have a twist of its own. At first you're fighting puppets, but then it devolves into something else where you're fighting alchemists, and the story is pretty complex. When you really think about it, all Souls-likes are fake Dark Souls, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's the execution that matters. And in my opinion, this game is the closest to pulling off what only From Software is capable of doing.
Yet another generic From Software Dark Souls copy-paste clone number 17. Zero originality, 90% of this game is a Dark Souls. Zero scenario and enemies variety, generic dramatic choir soundtrack, clunky gameplay, generic weapons, generic NPC. This game have no soul, which is ironic since it's a Pinocchio game. I am so done with those game developers trying to leech on Hidetaka Miyazaki work, as if it were theirs. They should give all the money they earned from this game to Miyazaki. Can't wait for this Souls-like thing to finally stop just like Battle Royale did. A copy is always a copy. 1 out of 10.
Well, this one was truly unhinged. There's a lot to unpack here. First of all, the enemy variety, that is ludicrous. This game is actually able to pull off having a wide variety of enemies. Even games like Wolong struggle with that. When you're playing Wolong, when you get about halfway through the game, you will have seen every single enemy there is, and you will only see very small variations besides bosses. In this game, every single chapter was bringing in new enemy types, so that is incredibly wrong. Also, when he's talking about generic weapons, he is extremely wrong yet again, because you can actually mix and match the handle with the blades of several weapons and make new combination. And if that's not interesting to you, then there's boss weapons that are extremely unique. But then again, I don't think this guy made it past the tutorial boss. And his last point, the most unhinged point of all, that all the developers should give the money to Miyazaki because he invented Dark Souls. Okay, great. That doesn't make any sense, dude. He didn't patent the Souls-like genre. Yes, he made it, he invented it, but imitation is the highest form of flattery. And I'm sure that Miyazaki is proud that he and his team has created this genre that has captivated the players so much that it built huge demand for a brand new genre in gaming. So competition is not a bad thing.
Wow, what a letdown. The Bloodborne-esque art style, the soundtrack and the weapon crafting system are all great, and this game would have certainly been one of my favorites of the year. If it wasn't for all the other issues it has, mostly revolving around combat. Here's a list of some, off the top of my mind. 1. Bosses and even a lot of the regular enemies are ridiculously tanky. It doesn't really add much to the difficulty, it just makes battles way longer and more repetitive. 2. Besides the tankiness, enemies are also constantly regenerating HP passively. You can't regenerate HP yourself though, despite the fact that you're also a puppet, just like them. No explanation is given for this, we're basically just told that this is how it is. Deal with it. And forced to accept this cheap way that they artificially enhance the difficulty of the game.
So that is just plain wrong. This guy clearly doesn't understand the combat mechanics. You can regenerate HP 3 ways in Lies of P. First of all is with your pulse cell, kind of like your Estus flask. Second of all, when you block, you will take damage, but you will be able to regain it. It's part of the combat mechanics, and it was there in Bloodborne. And the enemies have that as well, and that's why he thinks that the enemies are constantly healing. He just doesn't understand the regain mechanic. And thirdly, you can also heal by using the wish cube. So that was just an incredibly inaccurate statement, but please carry on.
3. Poise is non-existent. Even if you're wearing the strongest armor in the game, even the most basic attacks from the weakest enemies will still stagger you, interrupting your own attacks. 4. Many enemies, even small ones, don't react to your attacks at all. Even if you're right in the middle of a combo against them, they'll just brush it off and start attacking you before you're finished. Due to the previously mentioned lack of poise, this also means that your own attack will be completely halted, since you'll get knocked back or down on the ground. 5. If you get knocked down, it takes forever to get back up. Also, the enemies can still attack you while you're down, meaning you can get stun-locked to death before you're ever able to rise up again.
Once again, completely wrong. That is true at the beginning, but if you just play a couple hours of the game, you will get quartz and you can activate your P organs to be able to roll out of falling. Now, obviously, I don't expect this guy to getting further than chapter 1, but that is still the truth.
6. Once you finally hit an enemy enough to make them open for a fatal attack, which is basically just a stronger attack that isn't even nearly fatal in most cases, indicated by their HP bar glowing white, you need to hit it with a charged attack within the next few seconds, or else it recovers and you will have lost your chance. Problem here is that enemies can still move as usual while staggered, meaning your charged attacks, with their long wind-up times, tend to miss completely and then you most likely won't have enough time to give it another try.
Honestly, that seems like a skill issue because most of the time when I'm playing Lies of P, when I stagger an enemy, I am able to land the charge attack and then follow up with a fatal attack.
7. The dodge mechanic is one of the most useless ones I've ever experienced. The invincibility frames are so few, you're more often than not taking damage even during dodges. 8. Hitboxes, especially from bosses, can be extremely inaccurate and unfair. 9. The status effect decay is one of the worst in gaming history. What happens is that whenever you take decay damage, your weapon durability degrades at an insane rate. You can literally go from 100% durability to none in an instant from a regular enemy, and since having no durability in this game means every single attack you make gets deflected and barely deals any damage, it's basically a death sentence. There's an item you can use to repair weapons with for free, but it can't be used if the durability is at 0, so your only other option is if you happen to have a consumable with you, of which you can carry very few, that can do so, but chances are that you've already run out of them.
So the grinder is literally there for that purpose, to repair your weapon before it breaks. And yes, if you have the decay status on you, you will lose durability very quickly, but you can also just grind your weapon to prevent the total break. It's actually not rocket science, it's something that the game teaches you very early on.
10. Environmental details can and will block your attacks, but only yours. Enemies can hit you just fine through various objects. 11. Running back to the bosses is a real pain in the ass, because you usually have to pass a whole bunch of regular enemies to get there, often taking damage along the way, so you'll have to face the boss when you're already in a hurt state.
Wrong. The Stargazer will usually be very close to the boss, or there will be a shortcut that you can unlock that will make the run to the boss very painless. Once again, completely wrong.
12. The NPC you can summon to aid you during boss battles deals laughable damage and usually dies early on in the fight. 13. There's no multiplayer whatsoever. 14. One of the late areas in the game, 9, is the closest thing to hell that I've ever experienced. I thought the entire point was that it's supposed to be entertaining, but this area is the very antithesis of fun. Enemies gang up and rush at you like maniacs, have enormous health pools, deal ridiculous amounts of damage, can leap at you from a mile away, and with pinpoint precision knock you right into one of the many pitfalls/ravines that are everywhere and will kill you instantly. In the middle of all this chaos, you also need to somehow find the time to destroy a whole bunch of crystals that are littered around the entire area and will give you a debuff that also kills you instantly as soon as the bar fills up, which takes maybe 5 seconds. And, of course, you couldn't have Ultra 2023 without decay, so count that among all the other crap you have to watch out for, because there's just no way you'll make it through the area if you run out of durability on your weapon. If you're going into this game hoping it will be Bloodborne 2, do yourself a favor and lower your expectations. Bloodborne has its issues as well, but it's vastly superior to Lies of P in almost every regard, so keep that in mind while you consider your purchase. 4 out of 10.
Well, at least he ended on a high note, because he is right. Bloodborne is a better game. I don't think anybody can debate that. But Lies of P is an extremely solid attempt at a Souls-like. I had so much fun, and I found that the endgame areas were extremely unique. The bosses were very challenging, and all of them pretty much have 2 phases, which that's a lot of fun too. The phase 1 and 2 is extremely different from one another. It doesn't feel like a ripoff. It really feels like the developers put a lot of passion into this game. Anyways, I don't know if you guys see it the same way. Obviously, we're all entitled to our opinions, but I personally think that this is the closest to an actual Souls game from Software that we've ever had. Anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. Please do leave me your comments down below. I can't wait to hear from you guys. What do you think about these Brain Dead reviews? And I'll see you guys on the next one.